Hello. Hello to everybody. My name is Marie Vallikivi. I work as a curator at Kondas Centre. It's a small art museum in Viljandi, 80 kilometers from Tartu. And my presentation is about Riet family. I named it 4 Women and 1 Man, 50 years of photography in Viljandi. So you can see Jaan Riet. Can I point? Okay. Jaan Riet, his wife Marie Riet, Hilja Riet, Elma Riet, and his sister-in-law Anna Kukk. But I couldn't find any picture. They are all together. And it was already in 2003 I curated the first exhibition of Riet family and their photography in Kondas Centre in Viljandi. And it was evident that the Riet scope was clearly wider than their contribution to history of Estonian photography, clearly greater than just one small town and one exhibition. So, another photo from that particular exhibition. And thus, promoting their heritage became a kind of cultural historical mission for me. At the end of 2006, the Kondas Centre commemorated Hilja Riet, who had passed away at the age of 101, with a memorial exhibition, which was a repeat with certain additions of the exhibition Estonian Artists in Photography in 1947 to 60, held in Tallinn 1 year before. Unfortunately, I couldn't find good photos of it, but you can see one of examples. And later on, 2013, the Kondas Centre presented the largest exhibition introducing the heritage of the Riets, named The Estonian People and Their Everyday Life in 1902 to 35, based on stereo photos by Jaan Riet. Actually, Jaan Riet made the largest amount of stereo photos. There were some 547 stereo photos which were copied and sold in bookstores in the 30s actually. And here are, and these stereo photos actually were sold with the stereoscopes, that people could watch the photos. And to add more personal note, my family albums included a number of photos marked with J. Riet stamps, as well postcards by Hilja Riet. My 102-year-old grandmother, a native of Viljandi, remembers well all the 5 people associated with the Riet photo studio. And she said to me that they were all in one way or another active in the photo studio. There is one picture from our family albums, and I also must mention that I rarely raised up with albums filled with Riet photos. So, the Riet photo studio was allegedly the longest continuously operating photo studio in the history of Estonian photography. This was possible thanks to family continuity. And Jaan Riet started early. He opened his studio already 1898 with the permission of Governor of Livonia. Information on the photos was entered in these books you can see here, some of examples. And really, there are almost 80,000 photos. In 1971, Jaan Riet's daughters, Hilja and Elma, gave approximately 60,000 glass plate negatives to the Estonian film archive. But they also gave some 2,000 glass plate negatives to the local county museum in Viljandi. Riet's photo studio was initially in Koidu Street. It was small, but as the business thrived, in 1914, one of the most unique houses in Viljandi, designed by Karl Burman, was built with a bank loan. The building housed the Riet's photo studio and residence until the close down of the studio in 1948. In this building, the photo rooms were on the ground floor. The large studio room with a glass wall and glass ceiling, which enabled to have more than 90 people in the picture, was in extension behind the house. You can see. Oh no, it's under construction, but it's over there. The last photo. So I don't know why here. Yeah. So the new photo studio had top-class equipment for artificial lighting. There were 12 500-watt lamps. Their light could be softened using the cloth. The studio camera had 15 different lenses. There were 3 copying machines and 2 enlargers in the darkroom, and an automatic rinsing machine in the laboratory. And it's also important to note that in addition to family members, many female, but also male assistants worked in the photo studio at different times. But unfortunately, we don't know a lot about them, only some names. The Silver Girls exhibition introduces the creative work of 2 female Riet photographers, but the role of Jaan Riet's wife as a photographic artist was as important. Marie Riet, born in 1880, married Jaan Riet in 1902. Already in the following year, 1903, when Jaan Riet studied light printing technique at Klinisch in Frankfurt, in Germany, in order to be more successful in Estonia and make postcards, his wife took over the management of the salon. In 1908-9, Maria had further training at Bruno Vier photo studio in Dresden, where also her sister Anna stayed for a short while. As you can see from that photo, I don't know where it goes. Here. Little Hilja was born, and she went to Germany together with Hilja. And there is a very valuable correspondence between Jaan and Maria has been preserved, and I found from one letter that Jaan pointed out that if they made Dresden-style studio photos, they would be starving in Viljandi, as these were so dynamic, captured the person character, and had much freer composition. He just thought that they could let them to do in Viljandi. So the skills Maria obtained were essentially in the years 1915 to 17, when she was in charge of the studio again. Jaan Riet had enlisted in the Russian army during World War I, and he had been sent first to northern part of Estonia, then to Petrograd, and then to Finland. So, and also a bit later, when husband mostly devoted himself to outdoor photography and as well as stereo photography. The group photos and portraits by Marie Riet featured novel poses, were unique and perfectly executed. Unfortunately, however, she was unable to make fully use of her talent because her preferences were at odds with the Jaan Riet's personality. While Jaan had acquired excellent technical skills from Germany, the women, Maria, Anna, and others, they started to take pictures in fundamentally new way. I took some of examples. They presumably should be made by Marie Riet, but who knows? Oh. And more about Marie Riet. Furthermore, Maria who worked with the architect Karl Burman when planning the house and studio in Viljandi. Later, when her sister Anna came to work in the studio, Maria devoted herself to creating an arboretum, one of the first of its kind in Estonia. She used German gardening magazines as a model, but planned and designed the garden herself. The arboretum included more than 100 rare species, some of which were not represented even in the botanical gardens of Tartu. Both Maria and Anna were genuinely feminists of their time. In one of the letters to Jaan Riet in 1917, I found the sentence Maria wrote from Viljandi. We, women, have organized ourselves in very satisfying manner, and it may easily happen that Jaan Riet will be voted down. But still, so long as a studio existed, the name of J. Riet was stamped on every photo. And there is one more photo. In the middle, there is an Anna Kukk, and left side Marie Riet. While Maria, sorry, I should change. How? No. Ei, otan se tapan. Okay. Sorry. While Maria, with her works, remained in her husband's shadow, her younger sister Anna Kukk became more independent in her career as a photographer. Anna first made acquaintance with photography in her brother-in-law Jaan Riet's studio, where she worked as an assistant in 1903 to 1906. In 1908, Anna worked briefly as an assistant in Weisberger's studio in Buchholz, Germany, then as a photo retoucher and copier Otto Meyer's studio in Dresden, and also as a lab technician at Fischer Schneefeucht in Berlin. And these photos you see are made in Dresden. After her studies and work experience abroad, Anna Kukk returned to Estonia for a year, but went to live in a small Russian town of Zeya in Amuria in the Far East in 1910. And we don't know the exact reason, but probably they had far relatives in Zeya town, but there were always rumors about loving affairs between Anna and Jaan Riet. Before she went to Zeya town and after she was returned. So we don't know exactly. And Anna married Jaan Kukk, an Estonian who was town secretary of Zeya and being well off. And she could open her own studio there. And I show you the photo. Very outstanding building and big. Actually, the photo saloon, she could kept almost 8 years there. And there is another interesting fact that they went, Anna and her husband Jaan went to their honeymoon trip to Europe, which lasted almost a year, and their baby, Olev, left in Zeya in one Chinese family. And actually there are, I go back. There are hundreds of family photos have been preserved from Zeya time. So, but after Anna Kukk's husband died of typhus in 1920, Anna and her son Olev opted for Estonian citizenship and returned to Estonia, where she started work for her brother-in-law again. Anna brought with her equipment, family photos, and documentary photographs of gold mining in Amuria in 1912. Tens of images have survived describing the different processes of the hard work of gold mining and views of places where the gold could be found. But you can see in the exhibition there is one album. So, but the photos taken in the Zeya photo saloon were left in Russia. And there are some examples from Zeya period. And actually both of them, Anna as Jaan, took photos. And there are approximately 200 photos of Olev Kukk, their common child, and these are really valuable things, I'm sure. So, but from 1921 to 40, Anna again worked as an assistant to Jaan Riet, but also independently took and made photographs. In 1933, she was recorded in qualifications office as a master of photography, but she did not set up her own studio, probably because of lack of finances. In the period of the Republic Republic of Estonia, Anna Kukk became the most important studio photographer in Viljandi. But because Jaan Riet mostly photographed outdoors, and her sister Maria was engaged in housekeeping and gardening. Anna's most important assistants were her nieces Hilja Riet and slightly later Elma. You can see here. I try once more. Right? Here. Elma Riet. Here is Hilja Riet, Elma Riet, Hilja Riet, and Olav Kukk. Memoirs say Anna had a difficult personality and was authoritative. So she was also very demanding on her niece's work, which was not acceptable for them. So in 1940, Anna Kukk left the studio and she just retired. So now about Hilja Riet, Maria's and Jaan Riet's daughter. She was, like she and Elma, they really started at an early age to help their parents and aunt in the studio. But Hilja, from 1923 to 28, she studied at Pallas in Tartu, the most important art school in Estonia, which gave her, among other things, a good preparation in composing and organizing a picture. One of her teachers at Pallas was Villem Ormisson, a famous painter who came from Viljandi, but he had studied in Riga under the instruction of Wilhelm Spurvitis. So, Hilja, okay, I go back. Hilja started taking pictures with the photo camera Leica from 1928, which was ordered from Germany. So her art photos may be regarded the very first ones taken with this kind of a camera in Estonia. The camera was small and enabled to take pictures without a stand, which gave more freedom of movement to the photographer. Striving to apply her knowledge and skills, Hilja made a series of high-quality still lifes, florals, compositions, and holiday cards. Making use of the texture and structure of different materials in light and using multiple reflections and optical effects, she created images in which depth was perceptible. In the years 1931 to 40, Hilja made 176 images with a large studio camera, and of these more than 230,000 postcards were copied, and over 19,000 more cards in 1945 to 75. Thematically, the cards can be divided into three: Christmas cards, Easter cards, and anniversary greeting cards. It seems that Christmas cards were most sought after. For the postcards, special cream-colored paper was ordered from Germany. Such postcards with the words "Photo Hilja Riet" printed or embossed on them were the best promoters of the Riet's business. According to Hilja Riet, she started making postcards as a hobby after working hours in the evenings, and everybody in studio was quite surprised at their unexpected success. Jaan Riet believed a good photo was supposed to be sharp with well-defined half-tones. But Hilja Riet started to experiment with the blurring and thus set the mood for her images, which have therefore been called impressionistic still lifes, as you can see. After Hilja Riet's photo postcards became so successful, also others started to make them elsewhere in Estonia. In 1937, Hilja Riet was awarded the photographer's certificate and could have started her own, possible successful business, but she preferred to work for her father. So, again, presumably, another is postcard, but presumably this studio photo was made by Hilja Riet. But of course, there was a stamp, Jaan Riet, on it. So, the Riet's photo studio was nationalized in 1940 and closed down in 1948. So Hilja was not able to continue as a professional photographer. In the Soviet period, Hilja Riet photographed Estonian artists over the period 47 to 60, producing 43 culture historically valuable photos. It was not a commissioned work, but something that Hilja took up as a hobby. The photos were staged, but not attempts were made to hide it. The persons in the photos really looked directly into the lenses. There in the middle, you can see one of these photos. Usually, they are captured from the side, as I say, focusing on uniquely characteristic feature. These photos have the same feeling that found in postcards. She made a perfect use of all shades of tones, laid emphasis by skillful focusing, and playfully used both foregrounds, middle ground, and background. So, and you can also see some documentary photos made by Hilja Riet. And actually, she continued as a hobby photographer in Viljandi. Even my mother remember when Hilja Riet photographed her in 50s and also in 60s. So the Riet photo studio operated for 50 years. But researchers will have a great task ahead of them to establish the authorship of the studio photos. This is far from impossible. Thank you for the attention.
Marie, I wanted to ask about the heritage a little bit, because one interesting thing is like with Lydia Tarem, I noticed it that everything that we know is through one of her nieces. It's like, everybody refers back to Suursoho, like she told. But would you a little bit describe the situation with the Riet's archive? First of all, there is all the material that they gave to the film archive, and then there is something in Viljandi, and there is something in the photography museum in Tallinn. And so we have a lot of the photos, and there is the physical material. You referred to the letters, but what is the, how much of what we know is based on documents, and how much is there this really verbal history of the families?
Yes, actually, there are memoirs because, as you noticed, the Hilja Riet lived long life. She passed away 2006. She had very good memoirs, and it's written down. There are some personal notes, and these letters I mentioned are very valuable. But of course, these glass plate negatives, which are preserved in film archive, I don't know much about the research work because I'm just an art historian and I'm not expert of history of Estonian photography. So I think there is a lot of work to do to just analyze. I mean how we can trace the authorship of the woman. There are many ways to do that. First, these registered books are very valuable. We can see when women were in Viljandi and Jaan wasn't actually. He made his field work, and we know exact dates. For example, during First World War, when Jaan Riet was in army, and there are hundreds of photos, the soldiers' photos actually, made by Marie Riet. And another option, we can just analyze the photos themselves. Yeah. Thank you.
Is there known something more about Anna Kukk's the studio in Zeia? Were there a team or no?
Nothing about. I guess there should be some information in archives in Russia, but I think it's quite similar in Latvia. There are too few researchers, and I think the issue is quite a new female photographs in Estonia. Thank you.